What happened to Zero Pollution Motors after Shark Tank? Back in 2015, a company called Zero Pollution Motors rolled into the Shark Tank with a big idea. A car that doesn't run on gas or batteries, it runs on air. Yes, compressed air. The car was called the AirPod, and the business owner, Ethan Tucker, asked the Sharks for a $5 million investment in exchange for 50% ownership of the company. That meant he valued his business at $10 million. Ethan didn't come alone. He brought a famous friend, Pat Boone, a well-known singer, who was also part of the business. Together, they showed the Sharks a picture of their product, a tiny, three-wheeled car that runs on air. The AirPod was supposed to be cheap to build, just $3,700 to $5,100 per unit, and cheap to buy, with a purchase price of around $10,000, way less than most gas or electric cars. The AirPod could go about 100 miles per tank, reach speeds up to 50 miles per hour, and didn't make pollution or noise. The body was made of fiberglass and resin, which helped keep production costs low. Tucker told the Sharks he had already purchased the US rights from a company in Luxembourg called MDI, Motor Development International. His plan was to build small factories called nano factories across the US, starting in Hawaii. Each one would build and sell the cars locally, cutting down on shipping costs and creating jobs. But there was one big problem. The company didn't have enough money to get started. That's why Tucker and Boone were asking for a $5 million investment. In return, the Shark would get 50% of the profits, ownership, and decision-making power for the Hawaii factory. The Sharks were interested, especially in the low product price, the clean technology, and the idea of growing the car sales in the future. But there were some concerns. The biggest issue? The company could only build and sell the cars in Hawaii, not the whole US, because of the licensing deal. Mark Cuban, Lori Greiner, and Diamond John all backed out. They thought the company was too new, the risks were too high, and the limited sales area made the business less attractive. But Robert Herjavec made a bold move. He offered the full $5 million for 50% of the business, but only if Tucker and Boone could get the full US license to sell the AirPod nationwide. Tucker agreed to the deal on the show. It was one of the biggest investment deals in Shark Tank history at the time. Fans were excited, and people thought this might be the beginning of a new kind of car company. However, the deal never went through. Later, Robert found out that Zero Pollution Motors couldn't get the full US rights. That was a key part of his investment offer. Without those rights, he pulled out of the deal. This was a huge blow. The company lost the money needed to build the factory, which meant no production and no major sales. Still, Zero Pollution Motors didn't give up. They kept promoting the AirPod and started taking pre-orders on their website. They said deliveries in the US might begin in 2024, but there were delays. As of now, they're only selling air-powered golf carts, not street-legal cars. Since the cars are built in Luxembourg, American buyers also have to pay shipping costs and import taxes, which raises the final price a lot. And even though the car passed safety tests in Europe, it still needs to meet US vehicle rules before it can be sold here. Their Facebook page hasn't been updated since 2018, and they haven't opened any factories in the US. The business had a smart product and a big dream, but without the Shark Tank investment, they've had trouble making sales grow. Today, Zero Pollution Motors is still around, but they're not yet a major player in the car industry. Maybe one day the AirPod will take off, but for now it seems like the company is just full of hot air.